How's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest live show here for the Bleav in Queens podcast. This is episode 30 here on the WardyNYM YouTube channel, and of course, wherever you get your podcast audio-wise. And we have a jam-packed episode today. A fun one, a little bit of an unfortunate one, as the topic highlighted is the Mets' rival in the Philadelphia Phillies reaching the World Series. They are now the third NL East rival since 2019 to make the dance. So we're going to be sharing our raw reactions as, of course, Mets fans, Mets supporters, myself, Wardy, along with Anthony Recker, former Met, now MLB Network host, along with Joe Sorallo. So we got a lot to get into, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it no less. We're going to be breaking down the pros and cons, how the Mets potentially help the Phillies in a certain aspect that I'm going to be deep diving myself and helping them with this run, and really just a lot to get into and all the latest in the baseball world, including a World Series preview between themselves and the Houston Astros. So no further, Joe, Rec, how are you guys doing tonight?
Solid, doing well. Just tweeting out that we're live right now, so just trying to get it out there real quick.
There you go. That's what I like to see.
There you go, Rec with the major promo there. I was gonna say, don't look too interested, Rec. He was took him a little bit to get into that one.
Guys, I'm learning very quickly to multitask, because I now have, I mean, if you count this as a job, I now have 3 jobs, but I have 2 jobs like full time, and yeah, it's 3 kids is fun.
3 jobs, 3 kids. I'm guessing 3 hours of sleep a day.
Maybe. Yeah. Some of these days it's definitely been that. Good stuff.
Jeez.
I'm not cranky or moody or anything ever. It's always happy.
Only when you watch Penn State, right? Then you get a little moody.
Hopefully, I'll be there on Saturday. Let's go.
Big weekend coming up.
Can't wait. 9 a.m. game over here for me. Can't wait. What's the deal with the shirt? Is it a goose?
That's his soccer team.
Spurs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You
lose me on soccer.
Yeah, well, some of us are a little bit more refined than others. I get it. It's all right, Joe.
That's fair. Speaking of being refined, has nothing to do with it, but I should probably do the ad read if we want to get paid. So make sure you head on over to Bet Online. This show, just like the previous 29, brought to you by our sponsors over at Bet Online. Head over to betonline.ag. Enter the promo code Bleav. That's BLEAV. You'll get your 50% welcome bonus. Sorry if you missed it when it was 100%. It's back down to 50, but get that 50% welcome bonus. First time, one time. Use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV at Bet Online, and let the games begin.
All right, now let's let the show begin.
Next smooth transition. Here we go. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I want to take it to the World Series here. Sorry, T. I just figured I'm wearing Astro colors here. I figured let's dive right in. Rec, I want to ask you for the Houston Astros, because this is a question that's been on my mind, not following the show script at all here, but I need to know. This is their now 4th World Series appearance since 2017. They've only won 1, however. When can we start referring to this team as a dynasty? Does going there 4 times in, the last 6 World Series, does that qualify as a dynasty? Or do you need multiple rings to make it there?
I mean, there's not a whole lot of teams with multiple rings in the last 20 years. So I don't think you need to win, multiple in this time frame to be a dynasty. Realistically, dynasties, in my opinion, have always in baseball been more about your league centric, AL to NL, rather than just a major league dynasty, because we do split still, and we do, the way they do the schedules. Obviously next year that's going to be changing. It's going to be a little bit different. Still going to be heavy on your division, but you're going to be going to every single ballpark, which is pretty cool. That's going to be a really fun difference in the scheduling for next year. But no, I mean, I like this Houston team as far as I shouldn't say that. I don't like this Houston team.
We know that.
I like them and I would consider them as a dynasty in the AL, and the dynasty in the AL right now, because realistically, every single year, even years where I haven't felt like they were as good at the beginning of the year, they have been somewhere in the mix and on top. And obviously 4 out of 6 years getting to the World Series is kind of unheard of right now in today's game.
Yeah, 6 straight ALCS appearances too. I think for me that's what solidifies it. They've been a top 2 team in their league 6 years in a row. Even 2020, what did they go 29-31 in that shortened regular season? Still went to the ALCS, where they ultimately lost to Tampa in 7 games. I mean, Tyler, what do you think? Are they a dynasty in your book?
For me, when I normally think of dynasties, I think of teams that have won, over consecutive years or every other year. Like the Chicago Blackhawks, in my opinion, throughout the 2000s, 2010s are a dynasty. You could argue the Tampa Bay Lightning winning back-to-back Stanley Cups. I mean, just taking from all different types. I mean, even the Warriors, I view them as essentially a dynasty team. So I don't know if I would necessarily put the Astros in that class just yet, personally, because
You
they're
got pretty,
one.
pretty excited about that. You got pretty excited. About that.
You heard that, Rec, right?
Because for me, I think it would be different if their one World Series ring didn't have such an asterisk with it. I think because of that bugaboo, that tends to bother me. But I will say that should the Astros, say hypothetically, win it all this year and continue to have their dominance both in regular season and postseason, I think there's more arguments. I think for the Astros, they can really start to have that dynasty-esque talk, if you will, if they win it all this year by proving that they don't need the trash cans to win it all. And I Bleav that they certainly can and will do that, but that's something that they have yet to prove. So until we see that, I'm a little bit more hesitant than maybe you guys.
It's fair enough. It's a valid point. It's why I wanted to have the conversation, because people will, like you just did, Tyler, point to the fact that the only time they actually won the World Series was the year that they were cheating. So
yep.
It's an interesting discussion to have. Tyler, I'll let you flip it to the Phils. I know you want to talk a little NL East here.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Phils. Unfortunately, right? This is a Mets Center podcast. When we were talking off air, what's our topic going to be this week? And we're like, oh, let's just do a World Series preview. Well, we got to bring in the Mets in this somehow. So I want to ask you guys first and foremost. This is obviously a Phillies team where I feel like if I was actually going to try to be in attendance for one of the games in Philly, I'm thankful that I wasn't, because it would have been miserable for me as a Mets fan just seeing them go on to the World Series right now. But if I did, I want to ask a lot of Phillies fans what their thoughts were. Did they ever think at any point in the regular season that they would be where they are now? Because I'm sure 9 out of 10 fans would say exactly no. There's no shot, right? Because the Mets, look at what they did during the Phillies during the regular season. This leads me to one of my multiple points here. They win a total of 14 and 19 games against Philly this year. I'm under the impression, and I want to know if you guys can agree or disagree with this. I think that to an extent, the Mets beating down on the Phillies and the Phillies being beaten down all year long by their division rivals, not only the Mets, but the Braves, really did help spark them at the perfect time come postseason. And on top of that, if it isn't for the Mets, winning, what was it, their first 9 games or close to, like the majority of games to start the year against the Phillies, if that doesn't happen, is Joe Girardi fired when he was? I think there's a fair argument that that isn't the case. So where would the Phillies be then if, say, Girardi had more of a leash during this past regular season? So it's bizarre to say, but the Philadelphia Phillies, I truly do Bleav the Mets had a say in kind of paving the way for them in that aspect, getting their new manager in internally, of course, and then them getting hot at the exact right time. So starting with you, Rec, what's your thoughts on all that?
Okay, so I'm going to say that I can see where you're going with it, and I get it. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, in some respects, the Mets beating down on the Phillies obviously was a part of this decision, because realistically, that was a part of Philly's terrible start to the year. And so, you get a new manager, and then, of course, you keep beating them down, and they go out and get a couple pieces at the trade deadline, and they end up with the team that they have. But to me, when I think about this Philly team, they're flawed. They were flawed. They are flawed. And I don't know that the Mets necessarily helped them figure that out. I think the one thing that they had at the beginning of the year was 2 really good starting pitchers, a couple of arms out of the bullpen that, had potential and obviously worked their way out throughout the course of the year. And then bats. That was what they had at the beginning of the year. And that's what they still have. They have a couple more pieces and a different manager. And yes, that manager has made a big difference. But to me, this team was just built for the postseason, not the regular season. They weren't going to win a lot of games in the regular season, just the way things go throughout the regular season. They needed more starting pitching. They needed better, consistent bullpen. And they needed guys to stay healthy in their lineup realistically, and then eventually, obviously, play defense, which they figured out a little bit later. So to me, no. I mean, yeah, you could, like I said, you could say that that's part of it, but to me, it's more about the fact that this Philly team is built for the postseason and they're hot. That's what it's about. They got hot at the right time. They got hot, and they're winning games that realistically they didn't always belong in, and they didn't. And that's part of the postseason when you have your aces on the mound and your best bullpen guys in the game, and you get your 1 through 5, they're healthy and they're rolling, it's going to be tough to beat a team. And that's what the Phillies are right now.
What about you, Joe?
Yeah, so I've got a lot to add to that. I do want to echo part of Rec's sentiment, though, because it's like, I don't want to sit here and say, oh, yeah, the Mets are the reason that Girardi got fired and the reason that the Phillies are where they are right now. But if you look at the fashion in which the Mets did beat up on the Phillies back when they had Girardi, it's, coming back from being down 7-1 in the 9th inning. That'll contribute to a manager getting fired. No hitting them. That'll contribute to a manager getting fired. So it wasn't so much the quantity of the Mets beating the Phillies as it was the quality of some of those games and how they shaped up that are just unacceptable. Unacceptable to blow a 6-run 9th inning lead. Unacceptable to get no hit. So that I get. Yeah, Rec.
Why is that on the manager?
The 7-1 lead more so than the no-hitter.
But why?
Because bullpen management always comes back to the manager. And how did you not put in the right guy? How were you not able to preserve a 7-1 lead in the 9th inning? How were you not able to make the right calls?
How did the guys you put in the game in the 9th inning? Because that was all in the 9th inning, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, 100%.
How did they not get that? I don't care who it is. If you're in the big leagues and you can't hold a 7-1, it was, or
7-1 lead,
was it a 7-run lead? It was 7-1.
It was a 7-1 lead, and we scored 7 to go up 8.
I remember. I thought the final was 9-8. Maybe I'm wrong though. Anyway, the point, only thing I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to discredit anything you're saying. I get a little bit perturbed when managers get fired for crap that they shouldn't get fired for. Now, Girardi, I'm actually, I believe that he should have been fired, that he didn't have that locker room. It's for different reasons, is basically what I'm trying to say. And that's where I go down a different path. And that's why I don't necessarily think the Mets had that much of a hand in it. It was more about the fact that he's been working and performing with the team at below average expectations and standards for quite a few years now. And eventually that catches up to you. Losses like that don't help. But that should never be a front office's determining factor. And if it is, I just want to go up there and smack some people around.
Smack them around a little bit.
That's us on the field. That's the problem I have with it. I saw Dave Hudgens, our hitting coach in New York in 2014, get fired. He was awesome. He was one of the best hitting people I ever talked to in the game. And he got fired because we couldn't hit. It was not his fault. That team wasn't, we weren't going to hit. Sorry, I wasn't that good at the time. A lot of guys I'm not trying to throw any of my teammates on the bus. We just weren't that good. David wasn't healthy for most of the year. What are you going to do? And I get a little bit defensive of stuff like that. But anyway, I want you to keep going
and that's fair, and that's why I love having the player's
Good
perspective
point.
because I don't know how everyone would be in that situation, but you're owning that instead of deflecting that to the coaching staff and saying, oh well, he didn't bring the right guy, he didn't read the matchups correctly. Whereas some people will say he needed to make better decisions in that game. But going further rather onto this Philly team, I don't really know if they're built for the. They're definitely not built for the regular season. I don't know if they're built for a 7-game series. This is a great team built for a 5-game series because they have those 2 aces that you mentioned. And they have Ranger Suarez, who became an ace.
But they have the 2 off days now in the 7-game series. And that's where I think it could – and Wheeler is going to be on regular rest if he goes game 1. I haven't seen if they released game 1 starters yet. But he'll actually be on regular rest. So they'll have a full – because they ended so early, they'll have a full rotation – to use that'll be healthy and ready to go. You could potentially use Wheeler 3 times in this series because we've seen that done before. I don't think they will, but they could. And that to me means, the way he's been pitching, you get him on the mound 3 times.
Yeah.
Damn. Verlander was really good in his last start, but not the one before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this Houston rotation. They're phenomenal, but Nola can go out there and pitch a shutout too. He's not amazing. I don't think he's Wheeler. People call him 1A and 1B. I don't. It's Wheeler and then Nola. But he can do it too. All they got to do is get a couple of those. You know what I mean? And they're right in the series, and then it can go anywhere. And the way that offense is clicking now, these days off could really hurt them.
Could cool them off.
That's the one thing that I see. But I think those 2 days off unlike the last series where it would have been 5 straight, and that would have exposed them, but they got it done quick. That really helped them.
But what scares me about them if they don't go, and we're in the year 2022, it's really uncommon to ask a starter to start 3 times in a 7-game series. And what scares me about them is that if Wheeler doesn't start 3 times, there is a really good chance that game 4 for Philadelphia is a throwaway game. I know that they won game 4 against San Diego. They had no business winning that game 4 because they really have a 3-man rotation. They ran out Bailey Falter to be kind of like an opener, see what they could get out of him. And he got shelled, give up a 4 spot in the first inning. But lucky for him, Mike Clevenger has been absolutely awful for the Padres.
So
and then
bad.
He went on to get shelled in his own right. And I don't know why they didn't start Nick Martinez in that game as an opener for 2-3 innings. That's besides the point. But, Philadelphia, I worry about them. Game 4 might be a throwaway game. And then if you go to the bullpen, their bullpen's just not as deep as Houston. They've got Sir Anthony Dominguez, David Robertson, Alvarado. When he's on is great. When he's off, can't find the strike zone. But their bullpen doesn't go as deep. The Astros have, I feel like, 3-4 guys who you can ask to step up and be 9th inning guys in any given situation. The Astros also have, if they do have a starter get shelled early, they've got 2 great starters in their bullpen in Luis Garcia and Jose Urquidy, who can give Houston a lot of help. Should McCullers not have it one day? Should Javier not have it one day? The Phillies run the risk of, if Wheeler or Nola or Suarez doesn't have it one day, the Phillies are in trouble because then they really, overuse their bullpen. Whereas Houston can have a starter come in, give them 5 innings of relief, still have Neris, Abreu, Montero, Stanek, Presley fresh. So I don't know if it's going to be deep enough in this series to go, a 7-game set with Houston here. They do remind me, and this is my last point, they do remind me a bit of last year's Braves team. The Braves, I don't even think they won 90 games last year in the regular season.
88.
Very all or nothing in terms of the lineup. And the Phillies, they've been on. Harper's had pop, Hoskins has had pop, but we've seen long stretches in the regular season where Hoskins can't hit, where Schwarber goes through it, where Castellanos goes through it. And, the Phillies are very all or nothing. Houston's going to hit no matter what, whether they're hitting home runs or they're stringing together hits. Houston's going to hit. And I just feel like offensively and bullpen wise, Houston's just so much deeper.
It's crazy when we talk about the all or nothing type profile of a team, right? Because, this is something that heading into the year, I heavily critiqued the Phillies about. And we saw it on full display throughout the year, regardless of Harper being healthy or dealing with his injuries. When you see Castellanos, Schwarber, and Harper on this lineup, you just know that the strikeouts are going to be apparent. And that certainly was to the demise of that ball club in large parts throughout the year, along with having a complete lack of defense. And the most bizarre thing for me is you look at the Phillies right now, what they're doing, their flaws are still on full display. It's not like they've just become gold gloves at every corner. No, they're still having defensive issues, and their offensive approach isn't drastically different. But something that, again, you can allude to not only with the Braves last year, but also with the Nationals in 2019 is just about getting hot at the right time. It's crazy how much momentum swings down the stretch can favor a club. And even though the Phillies weren't hot entering playoffs, they were hot from the get-go, and they haven't looked back. Even in their losses in postseason, they haven't looked like a bad ball club whatsoever. You look at all these teams right now, it's crazy, right? Every team that has passed another in the NL for playoffs was the underdog based on regular season wins. Everyone that got kicked down in the wild card, then rounds 1, 2, that go to the World Series, all of them were underdogs. So
lower seeds won every round.
Yeah, it further tells you that from like a Mets fan perspective, you look at what we can take away from the Phillies in this run, regardless on how it finishes. For me, I will be very surprised if Phillies win it all, and that's not just me biasly saying that. I look at the Astros, and they just seem like a team that is due. Not just because of the fact that they're undefeated in postseason right now, but because they've had these runs, they have the experience. I think all that really is going to come together nicely for them in this World Series matchup. Not to down what the Phillies have done. I will be surprised if they win it all, truly. But with that being said, from a Mets point of view, you look at this Phillies team, right? And they're very boomer bust, similar to the Braves, even though the Braves were still a better home run hitting team. The Braves were fantastic. Phillies weren't far behind them, but they have their defensive flaws. And yes, their rotation isn't crazy deep. They're led by the Wheelers, who I still wish was a Met. You're led by Nola. You're led by Suarez when he's got it going. Even though with Syndergaard in parts has definitely been productive for the Phillies here in postseason. So the big thing for me, and I want to know if you guys can agree or disagree with this on this, is that being a 100-win team is great, but we've quickly learned that not only having momentum, but, even if you don't land first, it almost feels like it would have benefited the Mets if they weren't on this high horse back and forth dealing with the pressure of the Braves all year long. The Phillies were able to cruise fairly quick into this year from having a rough start, knowing that, hey, we're just going to focus on getting into playoffs, and then whatever happens then happens. I feel that they used that to their advantage, and maybe it didn't hurt their mentalities as much from getting gassed as a team like the Mets and the Braves, you could rightfully argue, may have been dealing with as postseason entered. And then the two biggest positions that the Mets lacked in this past year are exactly what the Phillies have succeeded in. From catcher, that the Mets decided, you know what, we're not going to wait and go out for JT Realmuto 2 off seasons ago because it was taking too long. We're going to go out. We're going to get James McCann. We know what has happened on that front. Then DH. Yes, Harper's been at DH a lot because of his injuries, but if it's not Harper, then it's Schwarber. And Schwarber, he might be very swing or miss, but you're getting 40-plus bombs for a guy that's clutching up in postseason too. So for me, this is something where you don't need to be the prettiest team in baseball to definitely have a run. We know that from previous Mets teams in the past have had success, but it really is just on full display right now with what we have seen coming out of the NL.
Yeah.
What about you, Rec? What's your thoughts?
Sorry, I've been texting with Zach to find out if he's going to.
Is that what you, because you pointed to the phone before and I was going to ask you what you were pointing at.
I thought you were talking in the group chat. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I know what game he's starting, but since the Phillies haven't released it, I won't. I'm not that guy. I'm not
breaking news.
I'm not
Adam Schefter. I'm not
Anthony Rector's
however many times you blink, that's the game he's starting. Amazing.
That's actually sick. Please tell Zach I miss him.
Shit, they're going back to a 9-game format, guys.
Anyway, look, I think, Joe, to your point, the Astros are the better team. Like, you can list it down. They've been the better team against everyone they faced in the playoffs. There probably wasn't going to be a matchup where I wouldn't have thought they were a better team in this playoffs, no matter who they were facing at this point. Maybe the Dodgers just because of the lineup, but realistically, even that would have been a stretch. Because literally, when you go 1 through 26, there's no weaknesses. It's incredible what they've kind of put together. From a Phillies standpoint, again, to me, they got hot. They have the right pieces in the right places, and they got hot. They have enough offense. They have enough pitching. They have enough defense, apparently. It's been okay. You've seen a couple of flaws here and there in the playoffs, but for the most part, they've been good enough. And their bullpen's been good enough, at least the guys that they need. So to me, what can the Mets learn from this? Get hot next year at this time. Don't suck at this time at this time of year.
Like 2015, right? I mean, we had the worst record of every National League playoff team, 90 wins.
It's crazy.
How are the Nationals in 2019? How are the Braves?
They were
wild card, right? Nationals. Didn't Josh Hader blow a save in the wild card game? Like, weren't the Nationals?
The Nationals, I don't even think they had 90 wins that year. I think they had 87 or 89 wins or something like that. The Braves last year had 88 wins, or 2 years ago. Last year, 88 wins.
The Mets pulled a Phillies that year, and that's when Kurt Suzuki hit the game-winning home run in DC down the stretch in 2019. That was really the start of the Nationals gaining their momentum in the final month plus of the season. That one stunned. That still bothers me.
Oh, was that the year we finished 86 and 76?
Yeah.
Pete's rookie. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a homestand that blew that. If I recall correctly, we had a 10-game homestand. Started with Cleveland. We took care of business against Cleveland. And then there were 2 series after that, like Chicago, Atlanta, like 2 tough series. And we went down. And I think we dropped I think we started 3-0 against Cleveland and then lost 6 or 7 straight.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about that one, guys. That was fresh off of retirement. And I was trying not to pay attention to baseball that year. I was literally no.
Question for you guys, though. From the mentality aspect, Rec, do you think that there's anything that can be said here, or is this just me talking out of my ass per usual, that you have the Braves and the Mets, going back and forth, really grinding things out? It felt like it was a World Series matchup between these two at times, just how heated the playoff atmosphere was during the regular season. I mean, the Braves acted like it was their World Series when they finally got the division lead with a week to go in the regular season. And then you see just, the mentality, they both looked gassed, even with a Braves team that had that bye against the Phillies. I mean, it felt like the Phillies were able to just thrive, knowing that they were comfortable at having no shot at winning the division, just making it to playoffs really feels like that was an X factor for them versus the Mets and the Braves constantly having this battle with one another to secure the division.
Honestly, I thought that was going to keep them ready for the
Right.
postseason.
I
The fact
thought
that
the
they were
exact
still
same
going.
thing.
To me, it's almost weird that they still have meaningful games that late into the year and then couldn't figure it out in the playoffs. That said, there is something to say about having both clinched the ability to be just being in the playoffs as early as they did, and then having games like that in the regular season where you get that spike of adrenaline. And then those next games after, you usually have this huge drop off. The Mets didn't. I mean, they came back home and just took care of the Nationals, just smacked them around and said, "Okay, see you later. We're ready for the playoffs." Again, really surprised that it didn't work out that way. But look, again, it's not. I think sometimes we get so hung up on, well, it must be the Mets' fault. Like sometimes the other team gets hot, and it's their fault. Like it's because they got hot. Like,
Yeah.
and so I think there's something to say about that too. And to me, the playoffs is just such a crapshoot. I've said it on here before. The Billy Bean thing. Like getting to the playoffs is the hardest part. Getting there, there's nothing I can do once we're there. It's like go do it. Like if we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. Pressure's off because I got them there. That's it. And realistically, like that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like you got there, great. Hopefully you're hot. Like it's all you can do. And yeah, it's just both these teams, the Padres and the Phillies, had bigger horses that they were riding. Like and the Mets just didn't have it. To me, the one thing that I think you need to remember from this postseason, you don't have to hit all home runs, but you have to be able to hit the ball out of the yard. Point blank. Why did Cleveland lose that series to the Yankees? Because they don't hit the ball out of the yard, period. They were a better team. Like watching that series, I truly believed Cleveland was the better team of those two on the field.
Better bullpen.
But they didn't hit the ball out of the yard.
More base runners.
Yeah, they didn't hit the ball out of the yard. If you don't hit the ball out of the yard, if you don't score runs like that, if you don't get that done, it's not going to happen. And when you have two guys that really supply all your power, it's going to be hard to do that in the postseason because both of them better be clicking, or you're not hitting homers. You're not getting there. You just have to at least have the threat. And for the Mets, it just wasn't there, especially at the end of the year. It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
But to that point, Rec, I mean, I couldn't tell you what the Yankees' batting average was. I didn't look at it for Game 4, but games 1, 2, and 3 as a team, they only hit a $140 against Houston in the ALCS. So to your point, you need a balance. Because the Yankees were too all or nothing.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying just hit home runs. I hope that's not how it sounded.
No, I don't think it did. I just want to clarify that balance is so important because the Yankees were not able to string together hits in the way that Cleveland could, in the way that the Mets could. But at the same time, teams like the Mets, teams like Cleveland didn't have that anytime threat. I mean, for goodness sake, it wasn't Aaron Judge. It wasn't always Giancarlo Stanton. Harrison Bader was the Yankees' biggest power threat. Like
he tied his regular season home runs, and
it's ridiculous. But you need multiple options, and that's it can't just be Judge or Giancarlo. The Yankees had Bader step up. Can't just be Pete and Lindor. You got to have other guys. And I believe Marte, before the injury, was actually demonstrating good pop. I think he would have finished with decent home run numbers. But you need a middle of the order guy. You like Vogelback, for example, and he had spurts where he was great with us. But what was his final home run number with the Mets? I mean, it was pretty low. It was lower than it was with Pittsburgh first half of the year. So, you need something. And he was hitting 5 or 6 some games. You need more of that in the middle of the lineup for sure.
Absolutely. And that's something that I'm really excited for us to get into once the offseason comes, because the Mets can go about addressing that offensive need in a lot of ways. I think the biggest question, obviously, is are they going to be maybe – I shouldn't say stubborn is the right word, but are they going to really give a long leash to their young kids and see if they're going to be able to get that production from a Francisco Alvarez, for example, next year? Brett Beatty, how much playing time is he going to get? Or are they going to seek externally for either a big name or smaller name free agent / trade option? We'll get into that all. That's going to be a lot of fun. But I did want to mention before we advance further in the show that there are some new Mets news that transpired at the time of us being live here on YouTube. And that is that the Mets are fully expected to re-sign Jeremy Hefner, their pitching coach, which I'm very happy about. Hef has done a really good job for the Mets since arriving with them a couple of years ago. And yeah, I'm very happy to see that. So,
it's your buddy, right, Rick?
Boy, it's my boy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen that news yet, but it's not a shock. This guy's awesome at what he does. If you haven't noticed that or realized that as a Mets fan in the last couple of years, I don't know what you've been watching, because, everything he's done with that pitching staff has been nothing short of remarkable, outside of keeping Jacob deGrom healthy, realistically. And that's not on him. When someone throws 102, 103 and tries to go out there and do it every fifth day, it's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, come on, look at Taijuan Walker. I know one of the biggest knocks on Walker is that he hasn't been able to give us a full season, but he has turned in consecutive all-star first halves. I mean, one he actually made the all-star.
I think he showed so much improvement this year in the second half as opposed to last year's second half that you could comfortably say him coming back next year, he could be a weapon.
Yeah.
If he's back on this team, he could be a full year weapon. I would feel very comfortable saying that.
Would he suffice as a number 3 for you, or do you still prefer him as a 4? Well, obviously you prefer him as a 4, but would he be a good enough, or do you think Bassett needs to come back?
I don't like calling guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just because I know how hard Taijuan Walker works, and if I called him a 4, I think that's a slap in the face. That said, you can never have enough arms, period. So whatever that's worth.
You can never have enough arms. And I really would like to see Taijuan back. We'll discuss it further. I unfortunately have a strong hunch that he will not return to Queens, however. So that's going to be interesting to get into, because he's a guy
he seemed to like it here. He seemed to really like this culture.
I don't think it's as much about him as it is about the Mets vision. So
that's fair. I mean, I'd rather see him than, look, I love McGill. I don't, you got to show me you can be healthy for a full season. I love Peterson. And Peterson was healthy for a full season, but you got to cut back on the walks. I'd be more than happy to see Ty back.
Me too.
And I think the Mets would benefit from bringing Ty back. He's a veteran. He's a great clubhouse guy. And back-to-back first halves, he was one of the best pitchers in the National League, especially this year when we had Max on the shelf and, for a good chunk of it, and DeGrom on the shelf for the entirety of it. Ty was our most consistent pitcher in the first half. Remember, Bassett got lit up a few starts in May and June.
And I think that's what was beautiful about the Mets this past year, rotation-wise. There were spurts where every single guy in this rotation was the best starter. And that's something that's definitely going to be missed next year if they're not able to really replenish things to their liking in that staff. That was my biggest takeaway from this year from a pitching standpoint. It's really nice to see that. But before we get to maybe say like 2 or 3 questions tops here in the live chat before we wrap up the show, I want to ask you guys, starting with you, Rec, what is your World Series prediction?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about it yet, to be honest with you.
Here you go.
I'll go Houston in 6. I really like the momentum that this Philly team has. I do think that this layoff could affect them. I wouldn't be shocked if Houston took this in 4. Like, I really wouldn't. But if they can carry any of that over, I think this is actually going to be a tremendous World Series, just because of the stars that have really shown up for Philly. Whether it's the back end of their bullpen, Bryce Harper, Hoskins, Schwarber, like, they all look like they're firing right now, and that's going to be fun. And so to me, it's going to be a great series. But they're relentless. They're the better team, period. So I have to say them.
Yeah, I said it in the ALCS. I'll say it again. Stros in 6. And, Rec, to your point, could just as easily be a sweep. Wouldn't that be something? They go 11-0 in the postseason. I mean, that'd be ridiculous. But I'm going to say Stros in 6. World Series MVP is Rafael Montero, and then he re-signs with the Mets next year. This winter, comes back to Queens.
You went off the rails.
We need something for social media,
I mean,
I would
if he gets that MVP and then he ends up making like $40 million as a reliever, I guess he'd come back. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, hey,
you caught him, right? He debuted in 2014.
Yeah, he debuted in 2014.
Subway Series. Right?
Yeah, wasn't it like right after DeGrom's debut?
Before, or back to back.
Right? Yeah. Oh, it was never. I thought so. Yeah, I didn't catch Montero's start. Or no, did I catch? Maybe I caught Montero's start and I didn't catch DeGrom's start. Maybe that's what it was.
Montero was against Tanaka. I was at that
Yeah,
game.
yeah, it was. I did catch Montero start, and I was pissed because in the meeting, Dan Warthen, our pitching coach, kept saying, "Oh, can't use his changeup against this guy. Can't use his changeup against this guy. Get out there. Don't use his changeup." He gets lit up, and I'm like after the game, I had caught him once or twice in spring training, and I knew his changeup was his best pitch, but I'm told that by my coaching staff. It's like, okay, I'll use it. Like, boom, boom, boom. Thanks, guys. Good idea.
Way to go, Warthen.
There was a meeting after that one, like internal, like, what are we doing, guys? It's his best pitch. Let him use it.
No, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he got totally rocked. Wasn't it like
It wasn't terrible. It wasn't
5 or
terrible,
6
but
innings,
it wasn't,
3 runs, like kind of quality start?
It was
Yeah, I did not walk away from that impressed at all.
No, exactly, and that was the problem.
DeGrom pitches.
But the thing is, Montero was supposed to be the bigger, guy. Like, he was supposed to be like, oh, Rafael Montero, he's gonna be the guy. And when I caught him in spring training that year, I remember I was like, holy crap, this kid's good. I mean, he didn't miss a spot. He was hitting my glove on every pitch. He had that ride on his fastball, and it was awesome because he would use it down in the zone. I had I think in spring training, I caught him 2 or 3 times, and I swear I had probably 6 looking punchies on fastballs middle down that guys were just like, oh, that's down. And then they just, okay, just walk them back to the dugout.
Was it like a sinking 2-seamer? Kind of ride into righties a little bit?
No, not at the time. No, it was like a riding 4-seam that was straight as an arrow. I mean, it literally looked like it was coming in and had some rise late. It was crazy. This thing, I'm telling you, I got so many takes. Guys were thinking it was mid shin, and it was crossing right at the bottom of the knee, and it was like he was blowing it by people. It was awesome.
I'm curious, how was that happening? Like, was he getting that low? Like that?
I don't know. I think it had to do with his release point in his arm slot. Mm-hmm. But I mean, at the time, we didn't have that kind of technology. You know what I mean? We just were like, damn, riding fastball. That's sick. Fast forward, 6-7 years later, and now they know why, and now they're teaching him why, and now he can do it at whenever he wants, wherever he wants, and you get swings and misses, and the slider's a lot better than it used to be, and so.
And everything's faster because he's a 1-inning guy versus a starter. What was he throwing, like 91, 92?
No, he was touching 95, 96. Like when I would catch him, he could touch 95, 96. Yeah.
Okay, I never remembered him throwing that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
I mean, I don't know. I don't remember what he was hitting in that start against the Yankees. I would imagine he came out touching 95. He probably sat like 93, 94. But no, he had something on it, and it came out of his hand well.
It was just funny because our biggest prospects, pitching prospects at least at the time, were him and Noah. And it couldn't be more different. I mean, probably like 7 inches between the two of them. Like Noah's throwing 100, 101.
100 pounds and 100 miles an hour. And
yeah. Wild, those guys. I remember side by side seeing a shot of them in spring training or in the minors or something. And it's like, it could not be any different.
I would love Montero back in the scenario where the Mets didn't bring back Diaz, but I don't foresee a world where that happens. I mean, even if they didn't bring back Ottavino, which I think that they have a strong chance of doing, I don't see how they'll be able to. Here we go again, Rick. You son of a bitch. God forbid the Mets bring back one of their most reliable.
Guys, don't fall in love with the ERA. Go look at some of the underlying stats.
I do.
I mean, I like Ottavino. I don't want him to be the 8th inning guy next year, but in a middle relief role, I would take him.
All right.
Rex, like, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
All right,
Tyler, you wanted to get to what? 2 questions?
Yeah, let's get like 2 or 3 questions. Before we do, I just want to share my World Series prediction. I got Astros in 5. Yeah, because you guys were so kind to pivot right back to me. So thank you for that. All right, so let's get into a question or two before we wrap up the show. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, guys, if you are here on YouTube. And wherever you get your audio podcast, make sure to rate, review, listen, all that fun stuff. Here we go, Rec talking shit on me. Normally,
no, you're saying smash it.
No, always saying smash it. Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Don't press the button. Smash that shit.
We need to have a graphic so it looks like he can like break his screen, like what happened with Keith Hernandez in SNY a couple years ago. Do you remember when he like tapped his pen and then they did like a fake camera break? You never saw that? That was hilarious.
No, I don't think I remember that.
Oh, it's so good, so good.
He's breaking screens. He's breaking bones. He just turned 69 the other day. Nice birthday.
Nice, good for him. There you go. Let's see. There was a comment I wanted to address here. Who do I think will be starting catcher next season? That's a good question because there's a lot of uncertainty with James McCann. I know the Mets would love nothing more than to part ways with that contract.
That was such a politically correct way to say that. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding James McCann. Yeah, garbage. That's what's surrounding him at this point.
Yeah, the uncertainty is what day of the week the trash goes out.
Sorry, guys. I shouldn't talk crap on catchers. I get it. I wasn't very good.
You have to back your brothers.
I know there's somebody out there tweeting you guys or saying something like, Rick, you suck too. Yeah, I know, but I didn't get paid $40 million.
James McCann's on his burner. McCann's on his burner. At least I didn't have a 199 career average right now.
Get out of here, kid.
I'm sorry. Was James McCann in the 50% percentile in sprint speed? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know what I would like to do? Actually, can someone put his numbers up next to mine and show me? Because I would actually like to see that. My first 2 years as Met, just get rid of the 30. That was bad. That doesn't count. The first 2 years, I barely played, but I bet my offensive numbers are actually better, and that's really sad.
You had really as many home runs in the 13th inning as he had all season.
Oh God,
that was good. You've been saving that one. That was awesome.
Yo, get wrecked. That's a wrap.
Goodness.
Get wrecked.
Get him. That's good. That's good. Yeah. No, look. Who's going to be their starting catcher? Someone not on the roster. I love Tomas Nido. He could be the backup all day long. That's fine.
Someone not on the roster.
No. Well, I don't think Francisco Alvarez starts the years. I don't think he starts the years as starting catcher. I really don't. I think defensively he has to prove something next year, and they can gain a little bit of control by sending him back down. And there's not a we have to have Francisco Alvarez start the season as a starting catcher. I just don't think you have to. I really don't. I think there's a good enough excuse to say no, kid, you need to go get better behind the plate because they didn't trust him at the end of this year behind the plate. Why would that switch to start next season? That's my only thought process behind it. Could he be? Sure. Is that a bad decision? No, not at all. I'm just saying I don't think that that's what they're going to do. It doesn't mean that they won't. Maybe they will. But are they going to go out and sign Wilson Contreras? No, that would be stupid. So realistically, I just don't think their starting catcher is on this roster. I think they find somebody else. I honestly haven't looked at free agency that much yet, so I couldn't even go out on a limb for you. But I think they find somebody else to fill the void.
I was gonna say Sean Murphy. He's not free agent though.
Trade?
If you trade for him, he's your starting catcher all year.
Yeah,
he's a stud, guys.
You just got wrecked.
His second half offensively was stupid, and he's the best defensive catcher in baseball right now. That if they trade for him, he's your starting catcher.
Telling me he can both defend and hit the baseball? No.
He's a better defender than Nido?
Possible. Yeah. Well, okay, I will say this. If Nido's numbers play out over a full season, it'd be closer. But Sean Murphy, his framing numbers, his throw, everything, fucking really good. This guy's awesome. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't
if the Mets bring back Seabass too, that would be nice for them to rekindle that relationship.
And Murphy's from New York.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, from Peekskill. Somewhere upstate. And if I just offended you by saying upstate, I'm sorry. Anything north of Westchester's upstate to me. They get very particular up there. Where I went to college, I called it.
Oh, you were talking to the fan base.
Yeah. I mean, where I went to college, I call it upstate New York because it's north of Westchester, but it's Western New York to them. And if you say upstate, they get very, very upset with their Wisconsin
I've told people in Westchester that they're from upstate, and they get very mad at me. It's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that about does it. One more question for you, Rec. What is your prediction for this weekend? Penn State, Ohio. Let me hear it.
Okay. Seeing as how, and I said this on one of these podcasts before, I've never gone to a game and had my team lose that I remember, that I can recall. I mean, maybe it happened when I was a kid.
Do you have a brief estimation of what your record is there?
I haven't been to that many games, especially with. I guess I've been to more with my team as one of the participants. I've been to a couple of Rangers games. They won. When I was a kid, I can remember going to a few A's games at the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, and they won. Trying to think. Been to 2 Niners games. They won. Been to a bunch of Penn State games, but that was a lot when I was younger, and only a couple more recently. But they've won. Like, I really don't remember going to a game and my team losing. So I've only been to 1 Duke game, and they blew out whoever it was, UNC Greensboro or something like that. Yeah, it's, I don't know, probably I haven't been to that many games. I'd say maybe 20-0, 18-0, something like that. I don't go to games a lot.
That's a ridiculous record, though. You do realize that's so really
the
good.
07 Patriots could never.
You said it.
You won some points back right there. What was it? So I don't know. I'm gonna say Penn State just squeaks it out. Like, somehow miraculously, Ohio State's a better team. Like, I'm just gonna flat out say it. They're a better team. Like, they're scoring 80 points a game, it seems like. Penn State's bend but not break defense needs to not even bend, because they're going to give up a lot of points fast if they do. But I'll say they miraculously do the old punt block and return it for a touchdown, a la, what was that, 2016? Like, be sick. 23-21 Penn State.
All right.
I hope you're right, Rec. I really hope you're right.
This is a prayer, guys. Like, I'm not. That's not real. Like, if I had to give you a real prediction, I'd probably say Ohio State. But I'm giving you my fan prediction, and it's 23-21 Penn State. Damn it.
42-24 Buckeyes, and it pains me because I'm a big Penn State fan too, so pains me. But I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., JSN, like, they've got 2 stud wideouts. I mean, CJ Stroud is my QB1 in the draft. Like, it's a tough team.
Someone said the other day the kid from Tennessee, quarterback, has a shot at the Heisman, and I what's his name? I forgot.
Hendon Hooker.
Hooker, thank you. And I about laughed off my chair. I was like, have you seen what CJ Stroud's doing? Like,
he does.
I get it.
Hooker's got a shot.
They're not gonna go undefeated. They're not gonna win the national title. I'm not saying Ohio State's gonna win the national title, but they're probably gonna be undefeated. That's how this stuff works. Like, you have to be in the top 5, and you have to be a quarterback.
But Tennessee is in the top 5. They beat Bama. I mean,
I
it comes
know
down
they
to the
are,
Georgia
Joe.
game.
I know they are, Joe, but they're not going to be at the end of the year, Joe.
We'll say the Georgia game next week is going to be what determines it all. It'll be fun. We love college football and Bleav in Queens.
I'm just saying. There's no way that Tennessee is in that position at the end of the year. So it's CJ Stroud, and there's no.
Should I give our loyal listeners a bet of the week for college football?
Go ahead. Free bet. Here you go,
Ole Miss
people.
-2.5 at Texas A&M. A&M's in shambles. Just suspended 3 kids for lighting up in the locker room after their loss last week. Who'd they lose to? South Carolina. A&M's a joke. 3-4 in the season. Ole Miss.
They're smoking that.
They were smoking weed in the locker room after the game. Yeah. Ole Miss got embarrassed in Baton Rouge. Blew a 17-3 first half lead. Lane not going to let that continue. They're only 2.5-point favorites. Get on that before the line moves.
I'll give you mine, and mine's worth 0. I lose every bet I ever make. So do the opposite of this. It's the opposite of me going to games. I don't know if I've ever won a bet in my life. Kentucky over Tennessee. Will Levis led Kentucky. You can just straight up bet the money line, boys. Boom.
Pizza bet that. If you're going to bet the Kentucky money line, make that a pizza bet. Take like $10 you had laying around the house.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Do not put the rent on it. Me and Tyler have been putting the rent on Houston the entire postseason.
And it's been working.
And rent's paid. Rent's paid 2 months in advance.
All right. My bet that I'll share with you guys that won't hold true by the time you're listening on audio. That is the Warriors tonight. They are the underdogs or +100. Don't bet them beforehand. Live bet them, especially if they're down, say 5-10 points, say before the half. That's where you want to smash a money line. Warriors. I got them.
Smash it.
Smash it. Tyler's getting a hang. Rec, you should see Tyler.
That's your next t-shirt. That's Tyler's next t-shirt.
Yep. Smash it.
Our private chat, Rec, like our texts on the side, because we don't want to blow up your phone nonstop. All gambling, and Wardy's becoming he's becoming a good little prodigy.
Why don't I get these? I'm terrible, guys.
The last time we were going back and forth, you complained that we were blowing up your phone.
Did you use the link yet that I sent?
No, they wouldn't accept my bank account for that one. I had to go to the other one. I'm not going to say it though. I'm not going to say what website it is because
don't. You can't.
Smart man. All
right, we'll talk.
That does it. Episode 30. Next episode, Ooh, should I wear my jersey this episode?
Oh my
Episode
gosh,
31.
You guys are so sad. You guys are so.
Next episode's 31. It's the Serralo
Hey, look,
episode.
it's right there. It's right there behind Tyler. Hey guys, you know what number I wore my first 2 years in pro ball?
Not 31.
31.
Wow.
Honestly,
an Italian catcher from Pennsylvania who wore number
From one
31.
Pines to another. Let's go.
I get to Vancouver in 2005, and they're like, here's your jersey. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm 31. Wow. They must really think I'm good or something.
That's amazing. Wait, you were in Vancouver?
Yeah.
The A's had a minor league team in Vancouver?
Yeah. I think there's still a team there. For sure.
Wild. I didn't know that. You know, when I filmed, did I send you the field that I filmed that show that I was an extra in?
Mm-hmm.
That was Oakland's for a little bit, right?
In Lancaster, you said?
Yeah, Lancaster, Cali. It was Houston, Boston, Arizona.
It could have been. It wasn't when I was there. We were Stockton in that league. Lancaster was the only field I didn't go to in that league because I got called up at the All-Star break, and we just didn't go there until after. But apparently, that place is an absolute joke.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was.
Glad I didn't get to go there.
I think our field in college was actually nicer.
No, I'm talking. Yeah, it wasn't. No, I didn't mean
the
like
town?
that. I meant like the wind howls out, and it's like 110 degrees, and it's a joke. Like,
yeah, well, it was hot as hell.
Some dude had like 30 homers at the break my year. I don't remember what his name was. Lefty. He didn't get anywhere outside of A-ball. Like, he was awful, but
yeah,
got there, popped the ball up, and hit 30 homers.
I was looking up at the names they had because obviously minor leagues, they don't have like retired numbers. They had the names, and like Dan Ugla. And I'm like, wow, I would have loved to see Ugla's pop at that field. You know, I think Bregman was even there because it was most recently the Astros. They had like Keuchel, Bregman.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good list of guys. Brandon Webb, that was a blast from the past.
Wow.
Old Cy Young winner. Yeah, it was cool. You know, being on that. I was gonna say playing on that field, but I wasn't playing. I was acting. But being on that field, yeah, it was cool.
You were pretending to play.
I was throwing an imaginary baseball like this. Yeah. Remember the first time I threw it, the guy's like, your hand was closed. I'm like, sorry, I'm not used to doing this without a ball in there. Like, he's like, well, yeah, hold it like this.
What you
like,
want me to do, guy?
I'm like, you want me to throw a splitter? Should I throw a splitter? I'll throw it like that.
I
like
can't.
When you do that, that is weird, man. Like, you got some big fingers.
It comes in handy, man.
And this is where the show
that does it.
That's episode 30.
Because you still pitch, right? Like, that's what you're saying.
Because I'm still throwing splitters, yeah. Because I'm still out
making
here. Yeah.
Sure. Like,
yeah, man.
We'll see you guys next week. Have a great night, folks. Thank you so much.